Hey everybody, good Friday morning. I'm here with a Lightroom Learn mini tutorial for you on a new feature that was released at the Adobe Max event in October. This feature is available in Lightroom Desktop, Lightroom Classic, and Camera Raw, and it's called Object Select. And it adds to an existing arsenal of masking tools and gives you the ability to do some new and interesting things with making selections and doing selective edits in Lightroom Classic. So we're going to jump right in. Today I've got the image that we used in the Content Aware Remove video a couple of weeks ago, and it demonstrates a lot of the techniques of the Object Select tool quite nicely, so we're going to stick with this image for now. If you'll recall, masking lives up in the panel here, and right underneath the histogram, you'll have a list of tools, and you'll see there's a new tool over here on the far left. This tool replaces the Done button that used to live in the toolbar down at the bottom of your image. Makes it a lot easier to get and removes some of the redundancy you would have of having to have that toolbar open in order to close a crop or a mask. While you never needed to use that Done button, there were 3 or 4 other ways to do that tool stop. So if you were using the tool and you say, I want to stop, go to the next image, you could have just stopped and gone to the next image and it would have committed your crop or your mask. You could have also gone to the next image by hitting escape. You could have gone to the next image by hitting enter. Any of these methods would have allowed you to close out the tool you were using, save the current settings, and let you go to the next image. But people need a button to say that they're done. So the Done button was necessary. And now it's moved up with the other tools so that it's much more convenient for you to grab. If you're missing the Done button, give it a couple of weeks. Try using this new button right here, and I think you'll do just fine. So masking lives at the far right side. It's the little circle. And when I click that, you'll see that the interface has changed a bit. Across the top, we have Select Subject, Sky, and Background. Background is new, but I'm not going to cover that today. I'll cover that in a video in a couple of weeks. And down here, we've got the tool that I wanted to talk about, which was Select Objects. And a lot of people ask me, how is Select Objects different from Select Subject? So let's just take a look. Select Subject is going to say, I'm going to pick out the thing I think is the thing you're taking the picture of. In this case, it's pretty good. It says you're taking a picture of a leaf on a rock in the middle of a stream, and it grabs the leaf and the rock and some of the water around there. So it did a pretty good job of identifying the subject that I was shooting, but it might not have gotten the object I wanted to edit. And that's where the object selection tool comes in handy. I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that. And we're going to go down to Object. And when I click it, you'll see that a new mask appears. And I get 2 different mode tools here for Select Objects, a Brush Select tool and a Marquee Select tool. And those allow me to refine the object that I wanted to select. You'll recall when we had the Select Subject tool get in there, I got rock, water, and leaf. Let's say I just wanted to select the leaf. It's an object, but it's not the subject that Lightroom has defined. So using the first tool, the brush tool, I can come out here and I can paint a stroke across the leaf and say, this is my object I want to get. And it will give me a very nice mask of the leaf. You see that I can show you that mask by sliding the exposure up and down, that it picked out a very nice selection of the leaf for me. And that's great. I can mouse over that and see what I've got. So very quickly I went from selecting a large amorphous subject to a very small object within that subject, and that's pretty nice. The Marquee tool works easily as well if I select objects and instead grab the rectangle select and drag a rectangle around the tool, or around the leaf, excuse me. I get just as nice a selection as I had before. I can drive the exposure down, drive the exposure up, and you can see the effects nicely there. So that's really the power of Select Object, is it lets me select something other than the subject. If I had a photo of my grandson kicking a ball and it selected my grandson as the subject, and the ball that was partway across the yard would be a different object, I now have the ability to use AI to select that object and essentially perform edits on it or any other object I might find in the scene. Let's circle back to our rock for a moment. I'm going to grab the mask here, and I'm going to just reset the image so that I don't have any mask selected. Now I'm going to select Object. This time we're going to go into the brush mode, and this time I'm only going to select the rock. So I'm being very careful to grab the edges, and when I say I'm being very careful, you can see there's rock up there that's under the water. There's rock down here that's under the water, and I can grab all that selection and fill it in. Sometimes you don't even need to fill it in, and it will grab most of that rock. And I got a pretty good selection that time. There is stone under the water all the way around here. So that's an example of object selection. It's different than the subject selection I had. A little bit tighter, but I could go even tighter if I wished. I'll hit Command Z to undo that, and we'll grab Select Objects. And this time I'm just going to select the rock that is above the water line. And we'll do it kind of sloppily here, and it will actually pick out just the parts of the rock that are above the water line because that's what I've defined. I'll hit Command Z to undo, and we'll try that object selection again, this time using the rectangle selection tool. And I'll just select basically really tight to the rock portion that's above the water line and see how it does. It didn't do as well. So that's an example where the brush tool is going to give you a superior selection to what the marquee drag tool is. But in any case, I've got a great selection either way, a good place to start, and I can refine it using any of the other masking tools I have. I'll hit Command Z, and let's say now that I wanted to have the rock, but I did not want to have the leaf. So I already found out that I got a pretty good selection using this, the brush tool. So I'm going to drag that brush around the rock. Just really loosely here. I don't have to be too tight. I'll leave some holes this time just so you can see that it still works. And that works pretty great. I've got my rock selected. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to just adjust the rock but not adjust the leaf. Using subtract mode combined with the new object selection tool, I can now come in. This time we'll grab a marquee and say, I'd like to take that leaf out of the game. And when I do that, it will give me a nice mask. The green is where my mask is going to apply. So if I do an exposure reduction, you can see the leaf stays pat, but the rock gets darker or lighter according to my edit whim. So I've now got a very powerful tool to take out an object within another object, and that worked pretty nice for me. I can do any type of editing I would like now, and I'm not constrained to the sky, I'm not constrained to the subject, which were our first two masks, and I've got all of these other tools, the brush, the radial gradient, the linear gradient, the depth mask in some cases if I've got a depth map with the image that I've got, the luminance range mask and the color range mask all allow me to refine this. And now I can use the object mask and the new people masks in conjunction with that. So if I was working on a portrait and the subject had a very nice necklace on that had a very big stone in it, I can now use object select to select that stone, even though I've used people select to select the person. Very powerful tools and works great. I'm going to wind up the tutorial right there for today. That's the object mask selection tool, available in Classic, Lightroom Desktop, and Camera Raw. And any of the versions that have been released since October are going to have that. Lightroom Classic is currently 12.0.1, Camera Raw is 15.0, and Lightroom Desktop is 6.0. So if you don't have those versions installed on your machine, you'll want to install them. A caution for Windows users: make sure you keep your graphics drivers up to date. The biggest thing I see on support forums with people who are having trouble with the mask selection tools is they're running very out-of-date graphics drivers. Don't rely on Windows Update to provide you with the latest driver. Find out who your GPU manufacturer is by going to the Windows Device Manager, and then go to that manufacturer's website and get the latest GPU driver. If you're using an NVIDIA card, they have both gaming drivers and studio drivers. Studio drivers will work best. If you're not playing video games, stick with a studio driver. You'll find that your masking selections will be a lot smoother and a lot more trouble-free. We're probably going to have another one of these Lightroom Learn sessions here in a couple of weeks, and we will go over another new tool from the Lightroom Classic, Lightroom Desktop, and Camera Raw releases. Until then, I wish you a happy Friday. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you soon.